Welcome back. This is Shankar, your instructor for Statistics for Business 1. What I'm going to do now is to bunch up all of these funny rows that I was talking about, and for that I will use a filter. Watch me do this. So I have a header row. I'm going to highlight it with some convenient color like yellow. For all of these rows, I'm going to apply a filter using this funnel button over here. I have this filter over the region. I'm going to sort regions in the ascending order, and I get a bunch of zeros at the top which don't necessarily belong to countries. How many of these are there? Well, we've got 36 of them. The last one, very carefully, belongs to the world. We'll have to make accommodations for the first 3 rows being a header related information. So I'm going to take the header as well as all the rows up to number 36, and I'm going to copy these rows into a new sheet which I'll call discards and get back to my analysis sheet. In the analysis sheet, I will go ahead and delete everything to do with these countries or regions. Okay. So much for rows that represented aggregates. Now we've got one other set of funny rows. What are they? You're right, not applicable. So if I were to scroll to the bottom, I have a couple of funny rows which I'm going to simply delete out of this and stick it into the discards page. So I have one set of countries that belong to what are aggregates, and another tiny set that don't necessarily have a region associated with them. The last row has numbers for the whole world. We'll insert an empty row in between.
I wonder why.
Well, you'll find out, Lisa. What I'm going to do now is to get back to our analysis tab. So on the analysis tab, let me scroll to the right where the data begins to appear. We still have some rows that have absolutely no data that is recorded. Both of these appear troublesome, and we've got no choice but to eliminate such countries. Now, how do we do that? We'll make use of a function called count. So for this, I'll create a new column called count. And let me count the number of blanks from 1995, which is under column AO, all the way up to 2012, which is under the column BF. So I will say count to BF number 4 for the row. And I have a 0 here. Now what I'm going to do is to pull it down, and I have information for all 18 years between 1995 and 2012. I'm going to apply this to that entire column. So now that I have a count function which gives me information on how much data has been collected for each country, I will make a decision. And that decision is to eliminate all countries that do not have a single piece of data against them. I will go ahead and redefine the filter here to include the count column. I'll go ahead and sort this in ascending order. Hey, I have a whole bunch of zeros over here. How many of them? 18 minus 4 plus 1. And that is 15 countries with no data on their tourism receipts. We've got no choice but to eliminate them from our study. So I'll cut it out of the system. I'll go ahead and place it in my discards. And I will also classify these countries. For example, this first set of countries belongs to a classification or an aggregate. And if I were to scroll down, I have a second set of countries that do not exist. These are the not applicables that we discussed. And finally, a set of countries for which there is no data at all. So what I have done is to shift a few countries out of our analysis worksheet into a discards worksheet. Shall we see how many countries we are left with? All the way from row number 4 to row number 201, which is nearly 200 countries worth of data. Now suppose we went ahead with exactly those countries for which we have complete information. That means 18 years of data. Let's have a look. We will have to eliminate nearly 60 countries. That's a lot. Am I right? If you notice carefully, there's a scant amount of data for 2011 and 2012. So how about we redo this count only from 1995 through 2010. So by narrowing down the scope, we might be able to consider more countries. So I will total up everything only up to column BD and not BF, as you can see over here. So by doing this retotaling, I will be able to get a new set of numbers. Once again, I will go ahead and put it in ascending order. Now what's the calculation here? 1995 is the beginning year and 2010 is the ending year. That is 16 years of data. Now do we have 16 years of data for a lot of countries? Well, it looks like we do, but we will now have to eliminate about 35 countries if you were to discard a few of the rows at the top. Now that's far better than discarding 60 countries. Am I right? So let me go ahead and clear out all rows between row number 4 all the way up to row number 40. And I'm going to send this into the discards data once again. But this time I will say insufficient data. So how many countries have I been left with? Well, have a look. Starts at number 4, goes all the way down to 164. That's 161 countries. Now what I'll do is to scroll up to the data part of the sheet over to the right, and if you notice, that's a lot of trailing zeros. So what I'm going to do is to rescale this data set to millions of dollars.
I like millions of dollars.
Who doesn't, Lisa? So for that, I'm going to make a copy of the analysis sheet and call it Final Countries. So here I have move or copy, and I'm going to move all of this to the end, create a copy and say Final Countries. Now in this sheet, I'm going to replace every number by that number divided by 1,000,000 or 1 million. But I cannot do that in place, so I will look at the reference number in the analysis sheet and divide that by a million. So let me begin at the top here. This will be equal to whatever is over here in the analysis sheet, divide that by 1,000,000 and I get 3, which is the right answer, right? I will do this computation all the way across and carry this all the way to the end. This is the beauty of spreadsheets. You can copy a computation all the way across. It is with this sheet, which is rescaled, that we will do the rest of our analysis. Here's what we must bear in mind. This is quite a restricted view of the world. We just got rid of 20% of the original list of countries.
Did the original list contain all countries? Probably not.
Smart observation, Lisa. In your exercise, you will be asked to arrive at the monetary impact of eliminating these countries from our study, where you'll be asked to look at the discards tab more carefully. It's less than 3%, so we are cool.